All right, I just wanted to hop on here. Welcome to the 5 second rule. This book has been pretty life changing up to this point. I am super excited. I'm glad for everybody who is a part of it, who's reading it, whether you're on this Zoom or you're not on this Zoom. Um, and you're watching this later and recording because you're at work today. No problem at all. We are glad that you are a part. I don't know how to turn that little thing off. Eee, that's not good. Okay, so we're just going to continue to keep going. We're just going to continue to keep going. So what I was saying is we're recording. There's going to be lots of people who can't hop on during the day. There's going to be people who can. And so we're just going to go for it. We're going to post the recording and everybody can be a part. But I will tell you, this book has been crazy for me already. So this is going to be our Diamond Empire book club for the month of November. We are going to get on here every Tuesday, all the Tuesdays in November for 30 minutes. That's it. We're not going to take a super long time, but this is going to help us be accountable, help us be a part. So yes, for the people who are on, right, I'm here and where you're from, because I love seeing where everybody's from. So go ahead and put that in there. I will tell you for this. Moving on. Of course, my dog's quiet all day, and then we hop on here and he goes crazy. Okay. This for me was actually a 5 second rule thing because I was like, man, this book is changing my life. El Paso, yay, Susie, yes, I see you there. And then Jeannie, yay. Because I was like, man, this is changing my life. But I was like, man, what if I do this and I, and I fail or something? And then in my head, I was like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just post about it. So there we go. Yeah, I didn't realize you're in Florida. Okay. So, yay. So I thought I would share. We are just going to simply review kind of the first 4 chapters today. And I want you to write kind of as we're going through what something maybe in the first chapter. And if you haven't read it yet, you haven't read it yet. That's totally fine. But if you have read it, what we're really going to do here is kind of just share the things that have stuck out to us about it. And then what our action is going to be to apply it. Learning is an incredible tool, but then when you can turn around and actually apply it, that's when it becomes life-changing. And so this book, to apply it, and here's the thing about it, I think that we get so, crazy about making things difficult. And I'm like, this is pretty simple. But like she says in the book in different places, is simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. And so just stepping outside of your comfort zones. And so if you have something that's kind of jumped out to you in that first chapter, why don't you go ahead and just write it in the chat. Say what it is, and I'm just going to kind of start going over the things. When we talk about it, what is the 5-second rule? And she explains it. It's the movement you have. It's the moment you have an instinct to act on a goal. So there's a goal that you've set somewhere, and it's the moment you have to act on it, on that instinct. Like you've set a goal, like I need to start working out. Then you're by a gym and you have an instinct like, I should join this gym. Okay, so you have this moment to follow an instinct, and you must 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and actually physically move before your brain kills it. So it's crazy, like when you're kind of going through this, you realize your life is full of all these little 5-second decisions to move forward or to beat a bad habit or anything like that. And so she literally says at the beginning of chapter 1, which this is a very mind thing. It's kind of different for me. I'm used to like a little more inspirational, a little more God-based and stuff. And this is more like science, and it's really cool for me. Reading it, I just keep thinking, God's word tells us that the renewing of our mind is such a powerful thing, and that's what I feel like this is in such a great way. So But she says you can literally change your life 1 5-second decision at a time. And I'm like, man, is that true? You can, live, love, work, and speak with greater confidence and courage every single day. And I love that. I think just, I just think fear is something that holds us all back. And so she goes in to talk about her story, which her story is pretty crazy. The fact that she just needed to break a bad habit. But in her story, where she's talking about she had a great career, her husband had an awesome career. Just a recap for anybody who hasn't quite read it yet. She had an awesome career. Her husband had an awesome career. Things felt like they were stepping up for her, and then they all started to fall apart and crumble. Just everything. And so she was like, I was a bad parent. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, depressed, dread, angry, jealous, just everything. And so she said what this became for her was just breaking the habit of hitting the snooze button in the morning. So she would feel trapped by her life every day. And so the best thing for her to do, she talked about like just drinking and just ignoring all the bad things that were going on in her life. And so she would go to bed, and dream, but then wake up to that reality again. And she just didn't want to get up. So she'd hit the snooze button and hit it until the day just felt way too overwhelming for her to keep going. And so I just think it's crazy. So she got this philosophy from watching one night. She was in bed and she was going to bed, and she was watching somehow a rocket taking off, and it went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And so she's like, all right, I'm gonna 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, get out of bed. Like, as crazy as that was in the morning. And so, and that's what she did. She was like, the next morning, the alarm clock went off. Well, it's kind of later on. So, but it will teach you how to change. And I think that's important, because a lot of times we can go, like, if we sit there and self-evaluate, we're like, man, how can I change? What can be different? And, just, we all know we need to change, but how do we change? How do we walk forward? And I love this. It's leaving the tendency of overthinking more to be present and productive. And it's to stop doubting and start believing. And I think that to me, that really jumped out to me. It wakes up the inner genius. I love this. The inner genius, the rock star, the athlete, the artist, and and it's a change agent that's in all of us. So we all have greatness inside of us. And I love that. It helps you stick to your goals, and it can honestly be your story. Become more effective in your networking. You could use this to step outside of your comfort zone, which I'm like, man, that's all of us if we're looking at the business side of us. We just kind of going from there. I love that it gets you out of your head and into action. And to me, that was one of the most powerful things that you can do, because I know that whole overthinking. And this to me is one of the things that really stuck out to me. And I don't know, like I said, if you guys had something that jumped out to you, please write it in there. But it gets you out of it's that you have greatness inside of you. There's no more excuses. Like, we just keep coming up with these excuses of why, and it could all be different for all of us. And then this, and I think this is where it is hard, to be totally honest. She's like, I realized I was the problem in my life. In 5 seconds, in the 5 seconds, I can become the solution. And I think that's pretty powerful, that we know we can kind of shift and become that solution. She's like, once she took this off and grasped hold of it, she made small decisions all day long that held her back. 5 seconds decisions, she decided to stay quiet, and to not risk it. Change comes down to courage, and you have everyday courage to make 5-second decisions. And I just think that's so practical, what we do in those 5 seconds. So, she felt completely dread. She talks about still feeling completely dread and just overwhelmed by life. And I think right now, if we were to go, okay, so when she said that, I started thinking about like when she woke up, the first thing she thought about was all that dread and fear and everything, that life was so frustrating. I'm like, okay, what's the first thing I think about in the morning? Like, is it fear about what I need to do? What's holding me back? And I'll tell you, I know what my first thing is that I need to do as far as like a discipline. Is it a bad habit? Is that first thing you think about kind of a bad habit? Because that bad habit can snowball into something. You can always, I loved this, guys. Makes sense. I can think of countless times I self-sabotage by talking myself out in those 5 seconds of courage. Yes, exactly, Susie. Like, that's exactly what this is talking about. And it's just like an aha moment, but I love that she talked about, like, in hindsight, she could look back and she knew what she needed to do. Like, she's like, I need to go get a job. I need to wake up and go get a job. But she just couldn't. And so what's great about hindsight is you can see what you could have done, but also see that not changing is kind of easier. It's easier to feel sorry for yourself than it is to just get out there and do something. It's easier to blame others. It's easier to be jealous. It's a lot harder to look in the mirror and do what you need to do. I'm like, gosh, ouch. I'm like, ooh. So, I mean, I've just been sitting here going, okay, what are the things I know I need to do? It's like, she keeps talking about that. Like, you know what you need to do. You got to go do them. We all know what we could or should be doing to make things better. And she's like, and I couldn't make myself do it. When it's not your problems, it's easier, to see how to solve somebody else's. And then change is hard because change requires you to do the things that feel hard. To me, I kind of like broke that down, like the things that feel hard. Like, it's not necessarily that it's hard, it just feels hard. Like, that feels really hard. But if you could like go, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, just kind of from there. And so it requires courage and confidence, but it's just the little decisions. And I think that's where we get just a little bit focused all over the place. We know what to do. It's simple, but it's not easy. And I think it's important for us to kind of relate, though. Stacey, I know these things that need to change in my life. Me personally, I know these things that need to change, and they seem really simple, but it's not easy to do. One, it could be just years and years of a thought process built up in my head that needs to be broken down and changed, When you set a goal, so this is how you use it, and this is it's the overpowering of the mind. So the University of Arizona did a study, and when you set a goal to do something, your brain is actually pretty powerful. It gets on board. Your brain sets up a task list, and it will signal you when you're around things that will help you too. And so it's that instinct. It's wanting to listen to that instinct, because that first instinct is like, yes, go do that. But then you start to talk yourself out of it. So it's really interesting how that works. But this can actually take care of that. So she said, honor your instinct by honor your instinct to change with an action. So I want to change. What am I going to do? And then what I do in that decisions. She said the alarm went off that morning, and she's like, I still felt all that dread. Nothing had changed in my life. So when she kind of came up with this thing, that was kind of by accident. It wasn't like, I'm going to do something and change the world. She was just like, my life needs to change and I need to take action. She's like, I didn't feel different. And I think that's important, because a lot of times we're waiting for a feeling to want to change, or a feeling that it should be better. Everything's still stuck kind of, for her, but she ignored how she felt, didn't stop and think, and did what needed to be done. She needed to get out of bed. So she counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and stood up. And she was like, and there I was, just standing in the middle of the room. But it's good to know, guys, that we don't have to have it all figured out. And so going on to chapter 3, when you count backwards. So I like this, because some people are like, can you count forwards? Can you count backwards? She's like, when you count backwards, you make a mental shift, and with the gears in your mind, you interrupt your default thinking. So kind of like what you're saying, Susie, like all the things you talk out of it, that's a default thinking. That's like process we go into in our brains. But you interrupt your default thinking and you make a physical move. So you have to actually make a physical move. So counting backwards is like beating your mind, and then when you actually physically move, that's where it comes on. Okay, and so it's called metacognition or something. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. There's always things, and I love this. There will always be things in your life that is hard or that you hate doing, but you still have to do them. And I think that's where this powerfully comes in. That's why I love this for my personal life. I love this for my business too. We always talk about there can be things that become hard in this business, but you choose your hard. Because no matter what you do, there's going to be hard, okay? But you choose that hard. And I love that. Like in this, there will always be things in your life that you hate doing, but you still got to do them. What's that thing for you? Like if you could sit down and take a second, what is that thing for you that you're like, I know I need to do it, but I don't want to? Just one. Don't think of like 100. You know what I mean? Like, what's the one thing you need to do right now? And then you make a promise to yourself to force yourself to be better. It's a bias towards action, to start doing. And I love that she said motivation is a myth. Like you don't necessarily need to feel motivated to do something. You just have to do it. In those fearful times when things seem scary, like say that it's something, you're actually probably more motivated not to do something. But that's where I think a powerful why comes in and knowing all that stuff. But she's just saying, guys, you can get the discipline and change this. Only we hold ourselves back, and I think it's powerful. And this, to me, has been my biggest takeout statement from this whole book so far. The rule doesn't make things easy. It makes them happen. Just makes them happen. So right before you do something that feels difficult, scary, or uncertain, what you're supposed to do, but you hesitate, and hesitation is the kiss of death in whatever it is that they're doing. You hold yourselves back in the smallest moments every day. So this is just trying to go, like if we were to put in the business, like, man, I think that person would be awesome. They don't want to do the business. That would be that moment of hesitation. So if you're like, man, I think that person would be awesome in this business. They don't want to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You know what? You just go shake that. Hi, I'm Stacey Akala. Or, I love that shirt. Or you just talk and you go, or you say, this is, because then you feel vulnerable. And so there's another side of you that's self-protective, and it's going to protect you in those moments. And she's not talking about these big life decisions a lot of times. She's talking about those little moments that you hold yourself back every day. And I love this too, and just the changing of your mind. You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastination. And so she talks about different habits that you may have. You're going to come face to face. So in this, you're going to come face to face with all your excuses. So when we decide to do this, what we need to know is we're going to come face to face with all our excuses, the precious time that we've wasted. But here's the deal, and I love this at the end of chapter 3. Every phase in life and your career requires a different you. Who does your life require right now? And I think just let's take a moment and think about that. Like every phase in your life and career requires a different you. Who does your life require now? And then you can become that person. It's kind of what she's saying. So chapter 4 just talks about how this is a technique for your brain to accomplish something different. How do you push yourself when you're all alone? We always talk about in the business, get to events and get there and do things. And that is so good because it starts to help our mind see what is possible. But then when you're by yourself, what do you do? And how do you push yourself? Because the longer you wait, the more time for excuses, and the more time you wait, that urge to follow through lessens. And so you don't want to wait on a lot of these things. Your brain is trained to protect you. And so sometimes you can get trapped in like this mental jail. But here's the good thing: worry, self doubt, and fear are all just habits. Those are habits of just wrong thinking. And you can get out of that fear. And so that is kind of a summary of those first 4 chapters. Is there anything else that you guys are kind of like, what would you say kind of sticks out from there in these last few minutes we have together to go over this stuff? Any thoughts you guys have? As you wait to write those in there, I think for me, there were 2, like I'm always going to go back to the Word of God. And there were 2 scriptures that really came to mind in my heart. And one was Philippians 4:8. And finally, brothers, I think for me, looking at all this, it goes, what is my mind focused on? And she did talk about that, like that spotlight effect that we all have. So whatever we tend to focus on is what is magnified in our life. So if we're focused on how horrible it is, it's just that much more horrible. If we're focused on how scary it is, it's just that much more scary. But choosing to what we think about. And so Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything's excellent, because we think about such things. And so for me, this is just a mental shift. Now I'll be a little bit vulnerable. Um, uh, I believe in going to counselors and people that can kind of help you go through life. And about 3 years ago, Joey and I were seeing a counselor, and it clicked in me that I was like, man, I feel like I was born to be pretty bold and outgoing and exciting, but I feel like I was nurtured to be something else completely. And so honestly, I feel like the Lord actually put this business in my life to teach me about who I am and who He created me to be, outside of that. And so much of that is just my mind. And so choosing to see what we think on. And then, Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the daily renewing of your mind to prove what is good and acceptable and perfect, the will of God. And I love that, just choosing to renew my mind every day. And so if I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I have one thing, like if I'm like, okay, what's the one thing that I can identify in my life right now that I need to change? And this is going to be simple, but you know what? This is the discipline I need in my life. Besides my daily thinking, what's going to help me is I need to go to bed earlier so I can get up earlier, so that I can continue to grow in who I am. And so that's where I'm going to apply in my life this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as the start, just this simple thing. And then, we're going to read chapters. I have a confession to make. I don't have my book yet, but listening, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Not having the book, that's kind of what this is for, is just, just pushing beyond those limits and taking a step out. And so the next thing we're going to do next week is going to be chapters 5 through 9. And we're just going to keep encouraging each other to take those risks and step outside of our comfort zones and become everything that God created us to be. I read chapter 5 today, and I was pretty excited about it, but we'll save that for next week. But we're at kind of our 30 minutes, and we're not going to go over. But if you have any last thoughts, go ahead and put those in there. I'm going to take this recording off.